Welcome to Encounter Wargaming. I'm Jay, and today we're going to be continuing our look at the second edition of the rules. I'm going to be showing you guys the mission cards, the strategy cards, as well as the Wargear cards and vehicle upgrade cards. So let's check it out. Alright, boils and ghouls, this is the moment we've been waiting for. All of the cards, vehicle cards, Wargear cards, strategy cards, all of the many cards that come with the second edition sets. I've showed you guys basically all of the rule books and all of that kind of stuff, as well as the Dark Millennium expansion, and now of course I want to show you guys all of the cards that came in both the starter set. Some of them came in some of the codices, some of them came in the Dark Millennium set, and there was a whole bunch of cards that went along with the second edition of this game. This here is the crazy little binder that I made myself back in the day, a little Khorne Chaos binder there, just decorated up a bit. But basically in this binder I have put together card pages of all of the cards for the second edition of the rules, mainly just to keep them all in one spot so that I can have them for my collection, nice and contained. And so let's just start digging into it, because this is sort of where we want to be at this particular point in our Relics of the Dark Age series. So right in the front here I have some photo pages here that I've put the mission cards. So I explained to you in the Dark Millennium set some of the missions that it showed us, as well as in some of the other books. There was the Battle for Armageddon scenarios and stuff like that. Now these are mission cards, and it's my understanding that you basically drew these cards at the beginning of the game to give you sort of objectives, I suppose. So we have here some of the ones, I believe these came in the second ed starter set, which was kind of cool, and these just kind of add to your missions. So let's just go over these briefly. Again, I'm not going to get into too much detail because there is a massive lot to cover here in this video. I'm going to do my best to try and make it as short as possible, but also cover as much as I possibly can. So let's just take a good look at these cards specifically that I have open here. Now, of course, we got the Assassin. Now, the point of this mission, it looks like to me, is basically to kill your enemy commander. So, of course, you get 1 victory point if you've wounded the commander, 5 victory points if you've killed them, and basically your secondary is just destroy enemy units whenever possible and minimize your own losses. Straightforward. We've got Dawn Raid, which more or less is just you've been creeping through no man's land all night in order to sneak through the enemy's front lines. In addition to your normal victory points gained from destroying enemy forces, you receive the following bonus. Having a squad with less than 50% casualties and an undamaged vehicle in your opponent's deployment zone at the end of the game is plus 5 victory points. That's interesting. So this is actually not necessarily killing the enemy, but as much keeping your own units alive and getting them into the enemy deployment zone. That's an interesting twist on the game. Moving on, we've got Engage and Destroy. Basically, you're getting 1 victory point for each enemy squad destroyed, another victory point for each enemy vehicle destroyed, and a victory point for enemy characters destroyed. So more or less, that's what we call nowadays Search and Destroy, I believe. So Engage and Destroy is pretty close. This is basically just kill points, right? You've got Guerrilla War. Basically, you want to be killing, looks like you want to be killing your enemy in hand-to-hand combat. So for every 3 enemy models killed in hand-to-hand combat, you get a victory point. That's pretty wild. Secondary objectives for any enemy vehicle destroyed or disabled within 24 inches of your own table edge. 1 victory point. That's weird. So in other words, you kind of want the enemy to come towards you, and then you want to kick his ass. Moving on, we've got Witch Hunt. I assume just killing a psyker. Yeah, so there you go. So you're actually searching out the most powerful enemy psyker. So you're getting a victory point for, so say there's a level 4 on the battlefield, you want to be killing that level 4 psyker. And you're getting 1 victory point for wounding said psyker, and 5 victory points for killing said psyker. Each enemy character worth 50 points or more killed gets you another victory point for the secondary. So more or less, if your enemy army does not actually include any psychers, or you've already killed the psychers, you can continue to gain points simply with this. And take and hold, pretty straightforward I think, just by the name of it itself. Left-hand edge, or take control of your objective, move some of your models within 3 inches and make no models. So it's interesting that it's still 3 inches of the objective marker, as it pretty much has always been in every edition. And we're controlling at the end of the game the objective that you've set out to take. You get +5 victory points. So these little cards are just kind of fun. They add an extra twist to the game. I suppose very similar to the sort of open war cards that they have now in 8th edition. What they're basically doing with this is you have your scenario, and then you take this extra mission card just to give you sort of an extra twist to the game, make it a little more fun for everybody. And I believe all those mission cards came in the original starter set. It's just the 6. I actually have multiple copies of them here, so I don't believe there's any more that I'm missing out on. Let me just double check here for you. Oh, turns out I am. So there's Space Marine ones and Orc ones. As you can see here, there's blue and green. Obviously the starter set came with Space Marines and Orcs, but they're the same card, just duplicated. So there you go. Moving on. Strategy cards. Now these were another sort of extra twist they added to the game too. And more or less these just kind of gave you extra advantages, I suppose. So I explained to you guys the strategy ratings when we were looking through the rules, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe you took as many strategy cards as you had strategy ratings. So like Space Marines were a strategy rating of 3, which I believe gave you 3 of these cards that you could add on to your army, which just gave you sort of extra advantages, more or less. The more strategic an army is, the better chance they have of swaying the game in their favor. We've got very crazy things here. So we've got Forced March. Basically, by pushing your army through the night, you arrive early enough to scout the battlefield and deploy before your foe arrives. You may play this card at the beginning of the battle. Before the forces are deployed, it allows you to deploy any of your forces up to 18 inches onto the table. However, any squads or vehicles which you wish to deploy between 12 and 18 onto the table must be deployed before any enemy forces. So that's interesting, because most of the deployment zones, I believe, were 12 inches. So this is basically sort of your infiltrate. If you remember back in 3rd, 4th, I guess 5th and 6th, infiltrate allowed you to deploy 12 inches away from an enemy, or 18 inches if you can, 12 inches if you can't be seen, 18 inches if you can be seen. So this is sort of the same thing, except it's allowing you to deploy between 12 and 18 up from your table edge, whereas your normal deployment would normally be 12. So it basically just gives you that extra 6 inches. Moving on to Barrage. This is basically your orbital bombardment. So you take a 3-inch blast marker and place it anywhere on the table. Then you roll a scatter dice, of course, to deviate it, with 2d6 in any direction indicated. Models under the marker will be hit on the roll of a 4, 5, or 6. Hits are resolved at strength 5, inflicting d10 damage. Wow. And having a -3 save modifier. The armor penetration values of the barrage is d6 plus d10 plus 5. That makes perfect sense, because it normally is d6 plus your strength for armor penetration, adding the d10, I suppose, damage on top of that. Moving on, we've got the bombing run. With a deafening roar, a bomber drops from the clouds, delivering its payload of incendiaries on top of the enemy before it powers back up into the sky, and blah, 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 blah. So you nominate a direction of the attack and place 1 template so that the arrow points in the desired direction. This is the point of release. The whole blast marker then travels d6 inches in the direction of the arrow as the bombs are carried forward before the impact. Resolve placing the other 3 blast markers with a thud gun. As with a thud gun. So that's that thud gun template where it was like a bunch of little small blasts that were all connected to each other. I showed you guys a diagram of that in one of the books. And basically that's the same as a barrage, like sort of boom, 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 boom. Very similar to how in more recent editions they did the template with the scatter die that flips off it in different directions. It's sort of like that, except this one was actually like 4 templates with like a pin through the center of each, so you could kind of go boom, 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 and like blast it out like that. Basically, orbital bombardment, right? We got booby traps, which your scouts have placed booby traps. Any models within 3 inches of the trap counter will trigger a booby trap on the roll of 5 or 6. And a 2-inch blast marker is placed in the center and triggered the booby trap. The model and anyone else covered by the blast marker takes a strength 4 hit, inflicting 1 damage with a -1 save modifier. Models half under the marker are hit on a 4, 5, or 6, very similar to partials back in, like I say, 3rd and 4th and stuff like that, where you had to roll 4+ for models that weren't fully covered. Trap counter remains in play and will immediately attack any other models which move into 3 inches. Oh, so it doesn't go away. That's interesting. Cool, so you can set up booby traps around the battlefield. That'll add a nice little twist to things. The next one we're going to cover is the brilliant strategy. So, a cunning and entirely original plan gives you the opportunity to steal the initiative from your foe. Play this card before deployment. Roll a d6 and add the score to your force's strategy rating for the rest of the game. Now, I believe your strategy rating mattered for rolling for first turn. So your, like I say, Space Marines had a strategy of 3. Orcs, I believe, had a strategy of 2, if I remember correctly. Maybe even 1. And basically when you rolled for first turn, you added that strategy rating to it. And I'm sure there were other ways that your strategy rating came into rolls throughout the game, because obviously this brilliant strategy allows you to add your strategy rating for the entire game. So clearly there's other things where you add your strategy rating. So having a higher strategy rating is a great thing, and drawing this card makes you even better at strategizing. So, moving on to covering fire. You may play this card one of your squads during deployment. The squad has been ordered to cover the rest of the army as it moves into position. The squad is so well prepared it adds +1 to all of its hit rolls for shooting in the first turn. Ooh. That's interesting. Alternatively, the squad may start the battle in Overwatch. Now, Overwatch does not work in this edition like it does in our current editions. In Second Ed, you forego your shooting in your turn in order to place your model on Overwatch. And then in the enemy turn, once they move a model into your line of fire, you get to shoot in their turn, which I think was wicked cool. It was an amazing mechanic. I don't really like the Overwatch nowadays where like you get to shoot before a unit assaults you. I mean, it does make shooty armies better the way it works now, but the idea of giving up your shooting in your turn in order to fire in your enemy's turn makes the game really simultaneous, gives it more of a simultaneous feel. Plus, it sort of adds to the strategy aspect of it, rather than just knowing that your units are going to be able to fire when your opponent decides to assault them, and not knowing whether or not your opponent is going to walk into your line of fire really makes a massive difference. But there you go. You can start in Overwatch rather than... so if you don't get the first turn, you get to fire in your enemy's first turn, which is awesome. Normally you'd have to wait till your first turn to place your models into Overwatch, and then in your enemy turn, they would be able to fire. So there you go. Craven Cowardice. You can play this card on an enemy squad with broken morale at any time. The broken squad completely scatters as its cohesion disappears into individual members run off and hide in the deepest, darkest holes they can find. Though troopers are not dead, there is no longer any chance of rallying. They take no further part in the battle, remove the remaining models of the squad and casualties. Craven Cowardice may also be played on shaken Space Marines to cause them to break. That's interesting. So, very much in like Warhammer used to work, not just Warhammer 40,000, but when you run, your squad actually physically runs until it reaches the end of the table. Basically, playing this card allows you to just scatter that unit, and they're never coming back again. There's no chance of rallying or anything like that. The next one we're moving on to is Delayed. You may play this card before your opponent sets up a single enemy squad or vehicle. Your choice is delayed by infiltrators fighting behind enemy lines and does not deploy for the rest of the enemy force. Instead, it arrives during the opposing player's first movement phase and must move on from the board edge. So basically, you're just holding back. You're being like, yeah, that predator there, I don't really like that being there in the first turn, so I'm going to force you to put that off the table, and you're going to have to bring it in from your table edge rather than place it where you want it. God damn it, I don't use my predator in the first turn. That freaking blows. But yep, that's the beauty of strategy cards. So moving on to the next page, we've got Divine Inspiration. This one's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool title. You may play this card at the start of the game. Your commander inspires the troops with masterful speech before the battle. All of your troops add +1 to their leadership characteristic for the entire game. Ooh, that's actually pretty massive. That's actually pretty massive, because leadership was a big deal back then. And there was a lot of modifiers and stuff like that you could use to counter a high leadership unit, especially in combat. If I remember correctly, your leadership was affected by how many models, either how many models died or how many wounds you actually took. I'm not sure of that. Again, it's been many years since I played this edition of the rules, but having that extra leadership is massive. And in that sort of same vein, I'm actually going to go this way now instead of going this way as I've been doing in the last page, because this one kind of relates, is Insane Courage, which means you can play this card instead of rolling the dice to attempt a rally or a broken squad, to rally a broken squad. The squad is truly inspired and rallies automatically. Furthermore, the troops lead straight back into the action without pause. The squad may immediately take a normal turn. So they may, for example, move, fire, charge into hand-to-hand combat, or go into Overwatch, or whatever. After this initial burst of activity, the squad acts as normal on the player's next turn onwards and may be subsequently broken again. So, Insane Courage, basically, you're just like, oh man, I really didn't want that unit to run away. Okay, I'm going to play this card, I'm going to put them right back in the fight. I want that Devastator squad to be able to fire again this turn. So, instead of having to rallying them, because when you rally, of course, you can't really do anything the turn you rallied. This one's just like, nope, they're back in the fight, they're going to shoot, I'm going to take out that tank with these las cannons, boom. Malfunction. You may play this card when an enemy fires a heavy weapon, and the weapon in question suffers a catastrophic malfunction and explodes and inflicts a strength 4 hit, inflicting 1 damage with a -1 save modifier on the bearer, and if it is a trooper, if the weapon was mounted to a vehicle, on the weapon destroyed chart to see what effect the explosion has. So again, that's going on to the data faxes, which I don't think I actually have in this binder. I believe I have those in the second starter box. If we get time today, I'll go on to those. If not, then it might be another video, guys, because this is a lot of stuff to cover in this video today. But we'll see how far we get. So, the next one would be Flank March. You may play this card during any of your own movement phases. Flank March allows you to move your squad or vehicle, which did not deploy at the start of the game, onto one of the neutral edges of the board. So that would be like, you've got your board, the no man's land between it, you can move them in from the side. This is basically outflank. Flank March, right? It's basically what is currently outflank, which is pretty neat. A leadership test is required for the forces to enter on the desired turn. If the test has failed, the force has gotten lost and may not move until they pass the leadership test and the start of subsequent movement phases. So in order to outflank, you just had to have that unit pass a leadership test in order to make sure they received those orders from their commander. Otherwise, you got to keep trying. So, very similar to reserves, very similar to outflank. What is outflank nowadays? The next one we're looking at is Last Gasp. Though mortally wounded, one of your warriors refuses to go down without a fight. Play this card. Your model is reduced to 0 wounds, and may be a character if you wish. Just before the fighter dies, he manages to loose off one final burst of... That's interesting wording. Loose off. I guess that's British talk. One final burst of fire from a pistol or basic weapon. Not a heavy weapon, or throw a grenade. Resolve this as normal shooting outside the usual turn sequence. Once the effect of the shot has been worked out, the model is removed. If the model is in hand-to-hand combat, the shot must be directed at the model in base contact. Yes, he can even pull a pin on a grenade. Cool. So this is more or less the similar rules you see for having a Primaris Ancient near your Marines, or like the Noise Marines, for example, which get to shoot when they die. Basically, this is a similar thing. Minefield, this is a cool one that I wish they would bring back into the rules, because even in later 3rd, 4th, so on editions, we had minefield stratagems we could use in like City Fight and stuff like that. Obviously, you play this card before the battle, and you place a 10-inch by 4-inch template, which is going to be your minefield. Any model that moves into it sets off a mine on a d6 roll of a 1 or 2, so more or less dangerous terrain. Including those with jump packs and similar equipment, may set off mines, as there is small anti-grav mines in the air as well. Mines inflict a single strength 6 hit that does d6 damage with a -2 save modifier. Ouch! Strength 6 with a -2 save modifier. That's dirty. If it comes in contact with vehicles, of course, it must be against the tracks, wheels, or legs. Again, like I explained to you, how vehicles have different locations where you would roll separate damage tables for each locations. Anyway, it's got to be on its tracks or legs, and it has D6 of. It has a penetration roll of 6 plus 2d6 plus d12. Skimmers can set off the mines too, in which case you randomly determine a hit location and the model on the minefield which do not move have no chance of setting off a mine. So if you move into a minefield and something blows up and you think, okay, if I move out of this minefield, I'm going to die, I'm just going to sit here for a while, and you don't set off any mines for staying still. We're moving on to Ambush. You may play this card on one of your squads during deployment, and the squad is crawled forward during the night to set up an ambush. You may deploy the squad 24 inches onto the table, so basically up to halfway up the table. Another way of sort of infiltrating, I suppose, in this edition. If you are in or behind cover, 24 inches up if you're in or behind cover. Additional squads begin the game in Overwatch. Ooh, so if you know your opponent's getting the first turn and you really want to get that sort of jump on him, you can set that unit halfway up the table, and then whenever he moves, you get to shoot at him. That's pretty neat. Look out, sir! Arr! You may play this card when any of your characters are killed, and for any reason, providing there is another one of your models within 3 inches of the time, the nearby trooper heroically leaps in front. Taking the hit himself, the character model survives, and the heroic trooper is rather sadly killed in his efforts. So basically, it's a look out, sir. It's actually called Look Out, Sir. But in, I don't know, 5th, 6th, 7th, you could look out, sir, your characters on a 4+ or a 2+, depending on what the character was. This is basically allowing you to do that in the 2nd ed. Reinforcements. Unexpected reinforcements arrive from a different sector of the front. You may play this card at the start of any of your movement phases, and it allows you to pick one of your squads or vehicles which has been destroyed during the game and return it into play. Ooh, that's an interesting one. The reinforcements must move on from your table edge during the movement phase, but they may not pick the entry point. May not pick an entry point within 24 inches of an enemy model. Basically, you can move on, but you can't be like right next to the enemy. The enemy scores victory points normally for damaging or destroying the reinforced model. Yeah, of course. If you kill it twice, you get twice the victory points. That makes total sense. Because basically, they're getting a unit for free. It's like, damn, I lost that Predator. You know what? I'm playing reinforcements. I'm bringing my Predator back. No problem. Moving on to the rest of the strategy cards that I have here. Again, these came in the starter set, as well as in the various codices. I don't know if you guys can actually see, but some of these have sort of a perforated pop-out. Those were the ones I found in the books. The ones that are more clearly cut are the ones that came in the sets. Anyway, getting off topic. Sabotage! Great Beastie Boys song. Friendly troops have managed to infiltrate the enemy lines and cut off the lines of supply and communication. Ammo dumps have been captured, blah, 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 blah. Play this card on an enemy squad just after it has fired for the first time. The squad is dangerously low on ammo. Roll a d6 for each of affected models at the start of each subsequent shooting phase. On a 4, 5, or 6, the model cannot fire that turn. This desperately searches for more shells or another power pack. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that Devastator squad, I think they're just not going to fire this turn. Huh? Saved! You may play this card at any time on a model, not a vehicle, which has been eliminated for any reason. Somehow, miraculously, the model is saved from its fate. It ducks at the last second, is blown clear of an explosion, hurled out of a crashed vehicle, whatever. If the model is within the area of effect of a blast marker, which remains in play, such as plasma or vortex, move it outside of the edge of the marker. Cool. So you can basically just be like, that commissar that just died, I think I want him to still be alive. So, saved. Boom. Like I was saying, these just add like extra twists to the game, which is really cool. I mean, there's not really stuff like this anymore. Now we have stratagems in 8th edition, which obviously are very different from stratagems in past editions. But the stratagems nowadays are basically these strategy cards. I mean, for command points, you can do special things, and it's kind of neat that they incorporated the command point stuff, because I believe in this case, like I say, I could be wrong. Maybe correct me in the comments, guys, if I am wrong, but I believe you drew as many of these cards as you had a strategy rating. So again, the higher your strategy rating, the better advantages you have, and you can start to play these to just add nice little twists to the battle. So going on to special issue, you may play this card in one of your character models at the start of the game. Shuffle all of your remaining Wargear cards together and then draw one at random. The character is permitted to keep the Wargear card even if it is normally limited to a certain race or character already. This has a full complement of Wargear cards. He may redraw if the first card is unusable by him. For example, a non-psyker drawing a force weapon obviously wouldn't make sense. Yeah. So you just get an extra Wargear card, which is kind of neat. Because we'll move on to the Wargear cards, and you guys will see that various Wargear items were on cards rather than the Wargear lists that they incorporated in like 3rd and 4th. There was Wargear lists in 2nd, which were your sort of stock weapons, but then there were Wargear cards, which allowed you to take extra weapons that weren't sort of just normally in your codex. And a lot of them were any army, some of them were race specific. So obviously if you're drawing, if you're playing Imperial Guard and you draw an Eldar card, that's totally useless. But yeah, it basically allows you to take an extra weapon for free and not paying any points for it. Moving on to Strafing Run. Scream of engines and aircraft, blah blah blah, from the skies, strafing run across the battlefield before lightning and afterburners are roaring back off into the clouds. Nominate one enemy squad, vehicle, or vehicle squadron, or weapons battery. Single characters are too small to be targeted. The squad is hit by a burst of fire from a twin-linked autocannon, working out using the standard profile. A modern cannot be hit more than once by a sustained fire until all the models in the squad have taken one hit each. As usual, a jam indicates no hit. Cool. So you're basically just randomly hitting a unit with a twin-linked autocannon. That could come in handy. Surprise Assault. Your swift attack has left the opposition ill-prepared and off guard. Play this card at the start of the battle. After deploying, your opponents are so surprised and hurried that they cannot set Overwatch and may not make any run or charge moves in the first turn. Vehicles cannot accelerate on the first turn. In the second and subsequent turns, the enemy may act normally. If the enemy is allowed to start the battle in Overwatch for any reason, such as the ambush strategy card or the trap Tyranid mission, the squads on Overwatch must pass a leadership test or lose it. Ooh, that's interesting. So you're more or less just slowing down your opponent's first turn. That's really cool, and it even counters some of the other cards we've already looked at. That's neat. Moving on to Traitor. A traitor in the enemy ranks has revealed their plans to you. You may play this card at the beginning of the game to increase your forge's strategy rating by a roll of D3. Ooh. Alternatively, you can hold on to this card and use it to cancel out any one of the following cards. Barrage, Reinforcements, Flank March. The enemy counts as delayed instead. Booby Traps, Brilliant Strategy, Forced March, Delayed, or Ambush. Wow. So really, that cancels out the majority of the other cards we've already gone through that allow severe advantages. That is a good card to have in your hand. Now we're going on to Ultimate Sacrifice. You may play this card when the enemy throws a grenade at one of your squads. A heroic individual in the squad makes the ultimate sacrifice and hurls himself onto the grenade, shielding the rest of the squad. Nominate one of the models in the squad. Resolve the effects of the grenade against that model only, even if the grenade normally uses a blast marker. If the grenade leaves a blast marker in place, such as a plasma grenade, move on to the model so that the outside edge of the template. Okay, that's pretty cool. So if someone's throwing a virus grenade or a plasma grenade or something at you, you're just like, no, I don't want all my guys to die. I'm going to sacrifice this one guardsman to save my Space Marines. Cool. Virus Outbreak. This one I remember being fun. A dormant virus becomes active. You may play this card at any time. Play the virus counter anywhere on the table. Any models within 2 inches of the counter are affected by it, as if a virus grenade had detonated at that spot. Work out the result of a virus outbreak immediately and leave the counter in place for the rest of the game. Anything which approaches within 2 inches of the virus counter in subsequent movement phases will be attacked by the virus again. Okay, though it's not really as bad as I thought it was, because I believe a virus grenade was only like the little 2-inch template. So that's actually not that big of a deal. But cool nonetheless. So basically, these cards, like I say, they just gave you sort of nice little twists you could add to your missions. It allowed you to get a little bit of an advantage. So we've gone through the mission cards, which add to the Battle for Armageddon scenarios, which is pretty cool. And then these add yet even another twist to the game. So you can see why this game took so long to play, because there were so many factors, so many unseen factors that came into it. Crazy. So over the next little bit, we're going to get into Wargear cards and vehicle upgrade cards. All of the vehicle upgrades were included in the codices, I believe, but they were also on these cards here. So, you know, bulldozer blade, that is basically what we call a dozer blade nowadays, and it adds plus 1d6 to your ram results as well. In addition to this, any shots which hit the front of the vehicle are deflected on a 4, 5, or 6. Wow, basically a 4-weapon vulnerable save. That's pretty cool. And adds plus d6 to the vehicle's front hull armor value. Wow, so it's not deflected, but it basically adds plus d6 to the armor value. That is huge. Especially because your base armor was 10, you know what I mean? So that's big. That's big. If the vehicle's hull suffers a penetrating hit from the front of a dozer blade, it's automatically wrecked, and this card is discarded. Yeah, of course. Moving on to the next page, so you can see we have race-specific vehicle cards. Of course, the blue ones here, I believe, yep, are Imperial vehicles, and I believe, if I'm not wrong, the red ones are generic vehicle cards. Yeah, just straight vehicle. Green ones being Orc vehicles, blue being Imperial vehicles. Realistically, of course. Because like I say, Space Marines, Imperial Guard, all that stuff, you could share them all around as we went through the ally rules before. So, these red ones can be taken by any race. The green ones here are obviously only for Orcs, and the blue ones are obviously only for Imperial armies, being Space Marines, Adeptus Ministorum, Imperial Guard. I believe that's it, because I believe squats have their own upgrades. So, supercharged engine. Basically allows you to add to your speed, so you're adding d6 inches to your combat speed and adding 2d6 inches to your fast speed. That is crazy, because that would allow you to gain serious ground. But as you can see here, you're actually paying points for these upgrades. They ain't free. You're not just given these upgrades. With these cards, you are adding to the points of the vehicle, but giving them severe advantages. So, moving on to reinforced armor. The armor of this vehicle or dreadnought has been reinforced by having extra armor plates. This means that the vehicle's armor is increased by 1 point on all of its locations, apart from your wheels and tracks. Yeah, I guess you can't add armor to your wheels. That would just be silly. Unfortunately, the extra weight decreases the vehicle's speed and have their speed reduced by 1 inch, and their combat speed reduced by 2 inches, and their fast speed reduced by 4 inches. Interesting. So there's slow speed, combat speed, and fast speed. And, of course, they're increased by this one and decreased by that one. Coolness. Walkers and dreadnoughts have their movement reduced by 2 inches. Right, because they have a flat movement, unlike tanks, which have the 3 different deals. Moving on to, so that was 10 points, which is pretty crazy. And then the Null Shield would be 35 points. The Null Shield protects against psychic attacks and works by projecting a field of negative psychic energy which repels psychic powers on contact. Enemy psychic powers used on a vehicle or dreadnought will, with a null field, roll a scatter dice. On the roll of a hit, the psychic power penetrates the shield and works normally. On the arrows is rolled, the psychic power is deflected 2d6 inches away in the direction indicated, passing over terrain and obstacles but affecting the first model other than a vehicle or dreadnought in its path. The null field is within an area of effect marker caused by a psychic power. It will nullify the power on a roll of 4, 5, or 6. Okay. So that's pretty cool, because the scatter dice, basically, there was only 2 hits, I believe, and 4 arrows, so that basically nullifies it. You have like a 1 in 3 chance of actually getting that power through the null shield, and then it's deflected on a random direction. And of course, if it was a template, instead of deflecting it a random direction, it just nullifies it on a 4+. So you have a 50-50 shot of just straight up nullifying those kinds of powers. That's cool. And then Searchlight, we all know what a Searchlight is. It basically just prevents Night Fight, but in later editions. But in this edition, when you use a searchlight, place a 2-inch blast marker anywhere in line of sight of the vehicle. Any hidden models are completely partially covered by the marker are spotted if they are behind soft cover, woods, brushes, etc. Models hidden or behind hard cover, which is walls and rocks, for example, are detected instead. Or detected. So detected and spotted are two different things. I believe we've covered that in past videos. Moving on to the orc upgrades, we got squig fuel injectors. Pretty cool. Vehicles, but not for dreadnoughts. Special guns that squirt extra dose of squig fuel into the engine and produce a burst of mind-boggling speed. Squig fuel injector is used at the end of the vehicle's movement and makes it move again 3d6 inches forward in a straight line immediately. So basically like NOS. Your buggy moved up and then it's like, I'm going to hit the NOS button. Just go straight ahead. If you roll the distance is more than 15, the vehicle starts to rattle itself apart. Move the vehicle, then roll a d6 on the hull damage table for the bike buggy war track damage tables as appropriate. Cool. Custom force fields, something we're familiar with the orcs. This card may only be taken for orc vehicles and dreadnoughts. The vehicles and dreadnought is fitted with a Mech Boy custom force field. Whenever the vehicle is hit, roll a d6 and deduct the result from the strength of the incoming shot. Ooh, that's interesting. If you roll a 6, the hit is stopped completely, but the force field generator burns out and destroys itself in the process, inflicting a strength 4 hit on the randomly selected crew member instead. So not quite as good as custom force fields nowadays, but when you, I've shown you guys the armor penetration rolls, how they're like, 8 plus 2d6 plus 10, or something like that, or 8 plus d10 plus d4. Decreasing the penetration roll by a d6 is actually going to help you quite a bit. Or on a roll of a 6, it just negates completely. But a strength 4 hit against an orc, remember, the crew members are just orcs at toughness 4, so that actually... Ooh, for 20 points, that could hurt you as much as help you. And, I mean, we're looking at Imperial vehicle upgrades. These are the small ones. Stormbolter, Hunter Killer Missiles, and Heavy Flamers. Those are pretty straightforward. We've looked at those in the other books. Hunter Killer Missile, though, I don't believe we have. Yeah, we have. We looked at it in the Armory book, I believe. And it's basically just a crack missile. Nothing special there. So those are your basic pintle-mounted weapons. Now we're moving on to Wargear cards, which is pretty cool. I'm actually going to have to turn... Here, what I'll do is I'll actually take out the pages. That'll make life easier, rather than turning my book, because I'm going to hit my camera if I do that. So let's just take out the pages and take a look at them. So here, I've got all the grenades outlined. Nowadays, we're really only used to frag grenades, crack grenades, and that's it. They even took out melt-bombs and stuff like that. In this edition, there were all kinds of grenades, and these Wargear cards could be given to pretty much anyone, provided as it didn't say, race-specific in red letters. If it didn't have a race-specific thing, pretty much anyone could take them, which is kind of neat. Sometimes it says character specific or psychers only or whatever. But anyway, vortex grenades, which I really wish they would bring back into the game. They were something that they brought back in 4th when they came out with Apocalypse, which was kind of neat. They came out with that cool little dome template, which was kind of nice. But it was basically just a small blast template. And I believe even in this edition... Vortex marker, yeah. So there actually was a Vortex template that came in the Dark Millennium set. And it was basically just a small blast marker with like some crazy electric stuff on it. Sorry, it was a 3-inch blast marker. I shouldn't say small, because in this edition there was a 2-inch one too. We call it small because from 3rd on, that was the smallest one. In this, I guess it's the medium-sized marker, but anyway. And you're rolling a d6 every turn. Of course, it's scattering around the table. 1 to 2, Vortex disappears. 3 to 4, it remains in play. And 5 to 6, it moves d6 inches in a random direction. So there you go. So every turn you're rolling the vortex. It doesn't go away. It just keeps floating around. And in fact, I remember a couple of games back when I was a kid of it sucking up terrain pieces. It was sucking up tanks. It's just... It was pretty much the most disgusting thing you could possibly take for 50 points. But because of the random movement of it, it could just as easily hurt you as it hurt the enemy. But it made for a wicked, fun, entertaining battle nonetheless. Rad grenades are pretty cool. We got D6 plus D4 strength. That's interesting. Could be anywhere from 2 to 10. That's kind of neat. -3 save modifier. And it has a radiation effect, so a template that could be anywhere from 1 inch to 3 inches. Cool, that's pretty neat. We had stasis grenades, which this one I'm going to have to read. As you can see, some of these are discard after use, so when it says that, it's one use only. The rad grenades, of course, when you purchase rad grenades, you have endless supply, same way you would frag grenades or crack grenades. Obviously, they don't make them something special, but if you had endless supply of vortex grenades, that could, after 4 or 5 turns, that could be a messy battlefield where everything's just getting sucked into vortices, sorry. So, stasis grenades. I'm actually going to have to read this one because I don't really know what a stasis grenade is. Grenade hit as normal, place 2-inch blast marker there. Everything under the blast marker is trapped in a stasis loop. Models inside the loop may neither act nor affected by anything outside of the loop. They cannot move to shoot, and they cannot be shot at. It is not possible to shoot through a loop, but it is possible to see through it normally. Vehicles and troops within 2 inches of the edge of the blast marker move at half within 2 inches of the edge of the blast marker. It's a 2-inch template, but if you're within 2 inches of it, that's weird. At half speed, and only shoot or use psychic powers if they first roll a 4, 5, or 6 on a d6. So you have to roll to see if they can get out of it. Combat is only worked out every other turn if there is a -2 to hit modifier for shooting through or out of the area within the 2-inch blast marker. The stasis field remains in play. At the beginning of each of the side's turn, one player rolls a d6 and consults the stasis chart in the Wargear book. Okay. Oh, I didn't realize I duplicated that one here, so we'll move on to virus grenades. Contains a lethal genetically tailored virus. Grenade hit is normal, place a 2-inch blast marker. Everything under the blast marker is killed on a d6 roll of 3 or more. Yikes. Unless protected by sealed armor, so Space Marines, Aspect Warriors, or enclosed vehicles. Protected troops survive automatically, but so it's useless against Space Marines or Aspect Warriors, I suppose, or a Rhino, but it'd be great against Orc Buggies. Do not remove models killed straight away. Instead, lie the model down and test to see if the mutating virus spreads to nearby troops. Roll a d6 to establish the contact range within inches for the virus. Any normally vulnerable model within the contact range of a victim is killed on a d6 roll of 4, 5, 6. Cool. Every time a model is killed, roll the contact range for that model and work at... Ooh, so this could just like spread through your lines if you keep rolling high enough. That is nuts. Toxin grenades. When a toxin grenade explodes, it showers the area with a cloud of deadly poison. Place a 1.5-inch blast marker there. What the heck is a 1.5 inch? Alright, well, we're going to have to go through all the templates later on, guys. And I'm going to have to show you guys the various templates, because I don't remember a 1.5. Every unprotected model under the blast marker is killed on the roll of a 2 or more. Yikes. Troops with some form of protection are killed on a d6 roll of a 3 or more. Enclosed vehicles and troops wearing sealed armor, Space Marines, Aspect Warriors. Tyranids and their creatures such as Gene Stealers, but not including crossbreeds like Gene Stealer hybrids, cannot be affected. The toxin gas clouds remain on the table. Oh, interesting. So Tyranids are unaffected by a toxin grenade. Weird, but of course cultists are still affected because they're just humans, even if they are augmented. Haywire grenades. This is something we're familiar with. I don't even know if haywire grenades are in 8th edition at all, actually. But they were clearly in 7th and still in Horus Heresy. Scramble grenade emits a powerful burst of electromagnetic interference which scrambles delicate circuits and overloads instrumentation. Affects vehicles, dreadnoughts, robots, wraithguard, terminators. It bursts 1.5-inch radius, so that's the 3-inch template. Roll to hit the scatter as normal. Vehicles, etc. hit with a hay grenade are penetrated automatically. Wow, that's way better than it is in 7th. Roll to hit locations covered by the template as normal, and then roll on the appropriate damage table. However, the pulse is unlikely to destroy a vehicle, dreadnought, etc., so deduct -1 from the damage result. Okay. So, it's unlikely to destroy the vehicle, but it definitely mess it up real good. Crewmen or terminators hit by haywire grenades suffer strength 3 hit, causing 1 wound with no armor save. Ooh, that's a great way to get away around Terminator armor. Because, I will mention to you guys, I don't know if I've mentioned it in other videos, but Terminator armor nowadays gives you that 2-up save with a 5-up vulnerable. In this edition, it was actually a 2-up save on 2d6. Yeah. So if your weapon didn't have any negatives AP, they automatically pass their save. Even still, if you had a -1, they're rolling a 3 or higher on 2d6. Which is really easy to do, so the only result they'll ever fail is a -1. So Terminator armor was just absolutely dirty in this edition. And this, obviously, is an excellent way to get around it, because they're getting a strength 3 hit with no save. That is huge. So here we go, we got going on to an auxiliary grenade launcher. Cool. This partial version of auxiliary grenade launcher is small enough to fit onto any weapon, so it's basically being bolted onto any weapon. And may be fired in addition to the normal shooting, because combi weapons in this edition were very much like combi weapons are now in 8th, where you can fire both. Excuse me. You can fire both weapons. Unlike in past editions where you had to choose and you can only fire the auxiliary weapon once and blah 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 blah. In this edition you can actually fire both, which is neat. So this could basically be attached to any other weapon, which is kind of cool. So you could literally have like, you could have like a las cannon with a auxiliary grenade launcher bolted to it. That's wild. And of course you can fire frag or crack grenades just like grenade launchers can nowadays. And then we've got a mastercrafted bolt pistol, which is basically just a bolt pistol with a 24-inch range, which is insane, and it even gets +1 to hit at long range. Wow, so basically you turn that bolt pistol into even better than a bolter. If I remember the stats for bolters correctly. Wow, that's pretty cool. So, instead of just one reroll, it actually gives you a massive stat increase having your stuff mastercrafted. Moving on to some of this cool stuff. So targeters, basically giving you a +1 modifier to hit. Nothing special there. Meta pack, which is pretty cool. So your apothecaries and Imperial Guard medics and things like that. Pain docs and stuff like that. I believe there was actually a card for docs tools, so they might work differently than the meta pack. But this is your meta pack that your apothecary would carry. And yeah, it's basically just got a roll here. You're rolling a die and seeing what it does. So it restores a wound to a living character, restores a model from 0 wounds to 1 wound. Wow. That's cool. Bringing back guys from the dead, you can't do that anymore. Restore the vision of a blinded model. Neat. Cure the effects of a non-fatal gas type. Right. Negate any psychological effects in a model. So literally, if your guy is like freaking out from terror, you could like shoot him up with some like crazy serum that makes him go, oh, I'm not scared of nothing. Armor piercing ammo, pretty neat. Hardened tip, case protectable weapons, supercharged power packs, blah blah blah. The weapon save modifier is increased to -6. Ooh, ouch, for that one shot only. Against vehicles, weapons, armor penetration is increased by an amount which varies according to the strength of the weapon as shown in the chart below. I see. So if it's a strength 3 weapon, you get +D3 to their armor penetration roll, strength 4 weapon +D6, 6 to 7 +D12, 8 to 10 +D20. Wow. So you added that to a las cannon or something, it would add an extra d20 to its armor penetration. Yikes. Jump packs. Let's see how jump packs used to work in this crazy edition. Jump pack permits to wear a long powered leap instead of your normal move. A jump pack can be made to move a distance of 18 inches, reaching a height sufficient to clear most obstacles. Woods, single-story buildings, reduce the jump to 12 inches. Roll scatter dice for the jumping model on landing, and the hit indicates on the target, and arrow indicates scatters d3 inches. Direction indicated: when a model with a jump pack charges, he may move up to 4 inches after he's landed to engage an opponent in hand-to-hand combat. Interesting. Rather than double movement. I guess that would make sense, because if your movement's 18 inches, you can move 36 charge. That would just be stupid. A model may make a jump, land, then shoot or throw a grenade, but it can't move or fire, or use a move or fire weapon, so you can't jump and use a heavy weapon. That would make total sense. Models using jump packs leap into a slow, predictable curve, so models firing at them may not suffer the -1 to hit penalty for firing at a targeted moving faster than 10 inches. Ah, I see. Normally there was a -1 for shooting at something that's moving more than 10 inches, but in this case, obviously it's not, because, like, we're literally talking about assault marines here, guys. Scanners can detect living matter and energy of any kind within 24 inches of the user, indicates concentration of tissue, energy, blah, blah, blah. Scanner is capable of differentiating between animals and vegetation. Yeah. Can read through rocks. Yeah. Military uses scanner and finding hidden troops, which are automatically detected. So if you have hidden guys, it detects them, so you know they are there. Seeking ammo may only be used with projectile weapons, such as bolt guns. Fitted with tiny thrusters, rudimentally robot brain. When you fire a shot using seeking ammo, you do not use the fire's ballistic skill or modifiers for cover. Seeking ammo will always hit the target on a 2 or more. Seeking ammo can also be targeted out of sight as long as the target is detected by a scanner or other. Okay, cool. So if they're hidden, but if they're detected, then it's like shoot around that corner. May not be used in combination with other kinds of special ammo. That's fair. Storm shield. Yes, storm shields were a thing. It's a large plasteel plate which contains a small power field generator. Some glowing field of energy emits crackling lightning. A model equipped with a storm shield receives an extra armor save of 4, 5, or 6. Cool. Now, it's worth noting, actually, something I had forgotten to mention in the past, that invulnerable saves, I believe, were done after the armor save. So like I say, Terminators didn't have that 5-up invulnerable save. They had a 2-up on 2d6. But other models, you could give a force field. So basically you would take your armor save, and then you would take your invulnerable save if your armor save failed. So a Space Marine with like a... I almost said a conversion field, but with a crazy force field, let's say. Yeah, conversion field would be 4+, right? Anyway, regardless, let's say he has a force field. He has a 3-up armor save, and then he gets a 4-up force field save. Cool. Storm shield, same thing, 4-up force field save. Cool. Moving on. Teleport jammer. Emits a constant signal which interferes with teleport beams, making teleporting into the area very difficult. The jammer has a 36-inch radius of effect. If anyone attempts to teleport, so Terminators, for example, could teleport, this area the player of the jammer can force the teleporting troops to roll a scatter a second time after they have rolled the scatter from their original teleport. In addition, the teleporting troops will be destroyed if they roll double 1s or double 2s on the distance dice. Ooh, that's interesting. Teleport jammer does not affect psychers using psychic powers to teleport. It's only real teleporters, like Terminators, not psychic powers. Digital lasers, something we have seen even in recent editions, something they've still carried over, are a concealed weapon, fitted into finger rings, knuckles of gloves, etc., etc. They do not prevent a model from using any other weapons and are automatically fired at the start of the hand-to-hand combat against opponents in base-to-base contact. Before the attack dice are rolled, and regardless of whose turn it is, the shot is worked out exactly the same way as normal, the wearer blasting away at point-blank range as his attackers close. The digital lasers get 3 shots, which may be divided amongst multiple opponents if desired. Once close combat has started, the digital lasers have no effect, and the model doesn't gain any extra attacks from having them. That's cool. You get a free shot off before combat. That could definitely come in handy. I believe digital lasers in 7th edition gave you an extra attack, if I'm not mistaken. So, kind of the same idea. Or to give you rerolls to your attacks. I don't know, something like that. So here, we've got various force fields and other things. So warp jump is an ancient alien device, I imagine like warp spiders. Model equipped with a warp jump may teleport to any point on the battlefield during its movement. Roll scatter dice. Hit means you're on target. Arrow means you scatter 2d10 inches in the direction indicated. Wow. However, if a double 1 is rolled on the 2d10 for deviation, the model is lost in the warp, never to be seen again. Cool. So basically you just teleport across the battlefield, I imagine. Like I say, just like warp spiders kind of idea. Basically alien technologies that the Imperium has taken. Because in this edition, there was actually a lot of trading technology between races, unlike nowadays where it's basically just heresy if you even touch an alien technology. Power fields are basically a -1 penalty. Weapon save modifier, so it always succeeds on a 2 or more regardless of the save modifier. Interesting. So it's basically a 2-up invulnerable save for 35 points. That's wicked awesome. But the model holding it suffers a -1 penalty to being encumbered. Okay, so this 2-up invulnerable save is huge. That is massive. But I guess he's got such a large generator on his back that he's -1 to hit in close combat. But that's totally cool, because if you have that character that you really want to survive, just give him the power field, and he'll just be stopping everything that shoots at him. Refractor field, there you go, just like nowadays. 5-up unmodified save, they called it. So I guess it's not an invulnerable save, it's an unmodified save. Immune is a broadband immunization which protects the body against biowarfare. A character equipped with this immune totally ignores the effects of choke, hallucinogen, rad, scare, toxin, and virus grenades. Yikes. The Aegis suit, that's what the Grey Knights wear, the Grey Knight Terminators, because there was only Terminators in this edition, there was no Grey Knight power armor dudes. Aegis suit is a close-fitting mesh and psychoconductive filament which dissipates dangerous amounts of psychic energy. It's normally woven in the clothing and hardwired into armor, hence an Aegis suit may be combined with physical armor and or force fields. A model wearing an Aegis suit gains a saving throw of 4, 5, or 6 on a d6 against an enemy's psychic power. So basically it's a 4-up invulnerable save against psychic powers. Conversion field, there you go. I was right, it is a conversion field. It is a 4-up unmodified save. Boom, nothing really more to explain there. Friends on, which is something we still see in the Renegades and Heretics rules. I'm not sure if it's elsewhere, but friends on dispensers. Friends on basically just makes you crazy in combat, right? So, for the rest of the game, psychological effects are automatic and no test is made for leadership. Can be induced at any time. A single dose of Friends On, contained with a Friends On dispenser device, will negate the induced psychological state. However, repeated use of Friends On is dangerous to the subject. Every time a dose is administered after the first roll of the d6, the model is affected on a roll of 1, suffers d3 wounds. Ooh. So basically it just gives you frenzy and hatred, psychological effects. Cool. And if you keep using it to try and up those, of course, you're going to get d3 wounds, which is... Oh, only on a roll of a 1, though. So the chances of you actually getting hurt by it are pretty slim, if my head is doing that math properly. Chameleon line is basically just camouflage, right? All shots fired at stationary model wearing Chameleon line suffers a -1 hit modifier. Standard, much like nowadays. Like the Raven Guard and stuff like that have the -1 to hit against them. Right. Displacer field is a 3-up unmodified save. And then once you pass it, you deviate a d6 inches in a random direction. So by avoiding the shot, your dude is literally like teleported d6 inches in a random direction. That's pretty neat. And like you teleport somewhere else. That's cool. Moving on to the next page. We got a lot of stuff to cover here, guys. I'm trying to get through it as quickly as we can. Forzax, bam. Basically, just like any other force weapon, except we got a force sword here as well, so I might as well talk about those at the same time. And a force rod, as well as a nemesis force weapon, which is Inquisitors and Grey Knights only. That's interesting. So let's take a good look at our force weapons here, because the force axe is +3 strength with -3 save modifier in hand combat. A sword is +2 strength with -2 save modifier, and the rod, you can store force cards in it. That's pretty cool. You can have up to 3 force cards. In hand-to-hand combat, it increases your strength equal to the mastery level and wounds demons automatically with no save. Ooh, so instead of just +3 or +2, you have a Psyker with a mastery level 4 and a force rod. He gets +4 strength. If he's at mastery level 2, he gets +2 strength. That's pretty cool. Plus, you can store force cards in it. So, like I was explaining to you, the force decks for the psychic phase. Basically, you can only have so many in your hand. I don't even know what the actual number was now off the top of my head, but this allows you to store extras off to the side without counting towards that maximum, which is pretty neat. And then we've also got here some other force weapons. We've got a Nemesis force weapon, which is specifically for Grey Knight Terminators and Inquisitors, which is kind of neat. Wielder can expend force cards, extra damage in the demons in hand-to-hand combat. Expending 1 force card inflicts D3 wounds per hit. Expending 2 force cards inflicts D6 wounds per hit. Nemesis force weapon can use to parry and incorporate a built-in storm bolter, which may be fired normally. That is pretty cool. So you can use your force cards to up his hand-to-hand ability rather than spending them on psychic powers. That's kind of neat. And we've got the Psychic Hood, which, as we expect, should be nullifying psychic power. Wearing a Psychic Hood allows you to re-roll the dice when attempt to nullifying psychic powers. Yep, so there you go. So he gets an extra chance, or better chances, to nullify enemy psychic powers. Now the ones I have over here are little enhancements that I've thrown in here. So we've got combat drugs, we've got bionic eyes, and bionic arms. So your combat drugs are 1 use only. Anytime immediately affects his characteristic, a character speeds up, so doubles his movement, doubles his initiative, doubles his attacks, and becomes harder to injure, adding +1 to his toughness, +1 to his strength. Wow! At the end of each of your character's turns, roll a d6. On a 5 or 6, character suffers a wound with no armor save as the drugs ravage his system. The effects of the drugs last until the character suffers a wound, or for any reason, at which point the character is discarded. Obviously, if you're taken off the battlefield, it's not going to help you. Model's characteristics return to normal. Combat drugs may not be used with friends on. Okay, that's fair. Bionic eyes. +1 to hit when shooting. That's cool. And can detect hidden troops, vehicles, or psychers within 24 inches. Nice. Bionic arm. Make a powerful enhancement for any warrior skills, giving him greatly amplified strength, reflexes, blah blah blah. Gains +1 strength, hand-to-hand combat, and throwing grenades. The model also gains +1 initiative in hand-to-hand combat only, so I guess it doesn't apply to things that cause initiative tests. Cool. Bionics are cool. Going on to more Wargear cards. Here we go. We're starting to get into Orky cards. This is what I like to see. It's interesting. Combi weapons are for Imperium or Orcs only. So this is what I was referring to, faction-specific cards. So like the one over there said Inquisitors and Grey Knights only. This one says Orcs only, Imperium or Orcs only. Here we go. We got Imperial Tech Priests or Squat Engineers only. So there you go. Very specific. The ones that don't specify in red writing can be used by any race, which is worth noting. So let's go over the Orky ones, because I'm interested to be brought back to my Orky days, or my second dead Orky days. Cyborg body. The body's replaced with cyborg parts. Not cyborg. They're cyborgs, right? Fighting fitness increased strength, blah blah blah, by 2 points. So strength is increased by 2. Orc is hit by an attack that is treated the same way as a vehicle or dreadnought with an armor value of 15. Huh. That's interesting. He's basically a robot. That's cool. Roll armor penetration attacks as normal. If the attack equals the armor value, then the orc is knocked over and may not move or fire in the next turn, which he stands up. The attack beats the orc's armor value, then he is knocked over as above and suffers 1 wound for each point of the attack beats the armor, right? So there's no vehicle damage table, obviously, even though he has an armor value of 14. But he suffers how many wounds? You go over his armor value. If you don't go over his armor value, then he's just knocked on his ass. Combi weapons, there you go. Write down and declare your opponent which type of combi weapon. Bolter plus a meltagun, bolter plus a plasma gun, bolter flamer, or a twin bolter counts as a storm bolter. Each shooting phase you can either fire just one barrel of the combi weapon or, per normal rules, fire both barrels at the same target at -1 to hit. So that's just like it is nowadays in 8th. I'm so glad they brought that back, because I remember when 3rd edition came out, I was so upset that you couldn't use a combi weapon as both weapons anymore. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? So I take a combi melt, I can use it as a bolter as many times as I want, but I can only use the meltagun once per game? Like, how silly is that, right? Psi cannons. I guess those are Grey Knights. It says Imperium only, but obviously they're more effective against demons. Let's read what it actually says. I can't, pregnant with psychic energy. A psi cannon may be fired as a shooting phase. Against demons and psychers, a psi cannon wounds automatically, and demon gets no saving throw. In addition, each time a psyker or demon is damaged by a psi cannon, it will lose the use of its psychic powers. Ooh! Picked at random for the rest of the battle. Yikes. So hitting a demon with that, you actually take away one of its psychic powers. That is huge. That's way better than they are now. That is, wow. But obviously they're not that great against non-demon armies. That is awesome. That is so awesome. Going back to orcs, gyro-stabilized monowheel. That's the little, like, unicycle legs that you see on some of the older orc models. I believe Cromlech still produces sort of wheeled lower torsos, monowheel type things, which is cool. An orc with a gyro-stabilized monowheel increases its movement to 8 inches, so it can run or charge 16. That's pretty cool. However, the orc may not cross obstacles of any kind, or else it suffers a strength 5 hit if it attempts to do so. May not run or charge through woods, difficult terrain, yep, of course. So, literally, he's riding a unicycle, and if he hits any kind of bump, he's going to fall on his ass. Custom shooters, there we go. So basically, 12 to 32, it's interesting. I believe a shooter... Custom shooter has a sustained fire dice, rolling 2 dice. Also variable strength, which is rolled like an artillery dice, giving it the strength between 2 and 10. Misfire is rolled and the artillery dice custom shooter explodes, and the shooter is destroyed, and the orc carrying it suffers a strength 4 hit. Crazy. Wow, that's nuts. Artillery dice strength. Wow, that's crazy. That is so crazy. Spiked arm. The spike arm often appears to be just a normal bionic arm, but concealed under the length of the arm are a set of retractable spikes. In close combat, it may be used to grip an opponent and then impale them as concealed spike slams into position. It gives the orc +1 weapon skill in hand-to-hand combat and means the orc always counts as having a higher initiative. Ooh, that's interesting. In the case of combat score being drawn. Custom Blasta, I guess much like a custom shooter. It's a big rocket launcher or grenade lobber fitted to an orc mech boy's special, S-P-E-S-H-U-L, special custom warheads. Custom Blasta as an unpredictable blast marker with a D3-inch radius. That's interesting. This could be a 2-inch blast, it could be a 6-inch blast. Roll for the size of the blast marker each time the weapon is fired. It also has a variable strength, which is rolled on the artillery dice. Wow, it's just like the custom shooter, but even better. Yeah, and same thing. If you roll a misfire, then it explodes and gives you a strength 4 hit. Looking at the ranges, this one has a much longer range, but no bonus for short range. And instead of 2 sustained fire dice, it is a blast. So that's pretty cool. Moving back onto Imperial, we did the side cannon already. We're looking at graviton guns, so obviously those existed back in 2nd edition. Why they got rid of them in later editions, I don't know, but they brought them back in 5th, right? Graviton gun affects the local gravity field and changes the weight of the object, making it far heavier than normal. Living targets are immobilized for the remainder of the game and may not move or shoot, although a psyker may continue to use his powers. If the target is a vehicle, roll to hit the location as normal and ignore armor penetration. Roll for damage on the appropriate vehicle location damage charts, adding +1 dice score against buildings. Roll to hit. If the hit occurs, rolling damage and add +1 to the result. Wow. A 1-inch blast marker. Wow, that is crazy. So it automatically wounds? Oh, sorry, it just makes it so the model can't move or do anything for the rest of the game. That's nuts. And automatically penetrates vehicles? That is insane. It's a good thing that only tech priests and engineers can take it, because otherwise that would just be nuts if you could put that on your normal guys. So, polymorphine for assassins only. Totally makes sense, because we do see the rules for that in later editions as well. An assassin equipped with polymorphine who's not deployed at the start of the game is that's the one that allows him to like shapeshift, right? One of the enemy, a player can select any humanoid, orc, squat, human, gene stealer, hybrid, or Eldar basic trooper, not weapon, but not a character or vehicle crewman or a model with a heavy weapon. Okay. In the opposing force and substitute it with the assassin. So basically it's like, do you see that orc right there? Yeah, he's actually an assassin, and here he is. He's gonna kill you. Cool. Oh, we've got some more orky upgrades here. Oh, I'm loving going through this, guys. I hope you guys are enjoying this too, because this is so much fun. I love looking at this old stuff. Gazkul's Adamantium Skull. Obviously that's Gazkul only. And what does it give him? Oh, he can headbutt, and when he headbutts an opponent in close combat, instead of making a normal attack, he wins the combat, and if he wins the combat, he only scores 1 hit, no matter what the margin he beat his opponent by. If the hit has a strength of 10, and a -4 saving throw modifier, wow, it causes +1 D3 wounds. So instead of doing his normal attacks, he can literally just be like that character right there, pow, in the face. Strength 10, -4. Wow, D3 wounds. Nuts. Sniffer Squig. It's a little doggy that can sniff out stuff. Anyone set up with Infiltrator, set up within 24 inches of a Sniffer Squig. Such sensitive senses of smell, they can pick out even the most cleverly disguised spy. Therefore, an Imperial assassin with the chameleon line may not reveal himself to be distinguished orc model within 18 inches of a Sniffer Squig. Cool. So it prevents infiltrators and prevents that assassin card we just read a second ago. Squig attack arm. It's basically, if I remember correctly, a bionic arm that literally there's like a cage inside that a squig jumps out. So what does it actually do, though? Opponent in hand-to-hand combat, so resolve the orc automatically unleashes a squig. Before any attack dice are rolled, the orc's opponent suffers an automatic strength 5 attack with no saving throw modifier, but the squig, after which creature crawls off to digest the chunk of flesh it's bitten off, or is killed by the opponent. This means the squig attack arm might only be used once. Totally makes sense. Literally unleashes a squig, it takes a piece out of the opponent, and then it runs away and eats the meat somewhere else. Little doggies. I love the little doggies. Vaccine Squig for pain boys only. Injects a powerful drug before the battle starts. All the members of the warband, i.e. the whole army, are given a shot of the vaccine squig. The drug makes the orcs injected with the immune to effects of viruses, so virus grenades, virus outbreak, strategy card. Has no other effect on the warband. Still, for 50 points to make your whole army immune to virus grenades or the virus outbreak card, that could be big. That could be big. Buzzer Squig stick bombs. I remember there was a little 2-inch template for that one with a bunch of like little bees all over it. Basically, it's a grenade that you're throwing, and it releases a little template with all the little buzzer squigs, much like a squig. It actually says here, much like a squig catapult, landed in the same spot. See the orc codex for the result of a squig catapult. Right, fair enough. Steel Skull. Nasty head injuries means that this orc has had a large part of his cranium replaced with steel plates. Cool. Makes him hard to hurt, even by orc standards. Orc gains +1 to his toughness for having a steel skull. He also suffers the occasional bouts of Mad Boy-like behavior and is subject to the rules for Mad Boys. Cool. So, he gets +1 toughness, but it makes him crazy. And when we get to the Orc Codex, guys, I'll go through the rules for Mad Boys, specifically because I've mentioned it now. So, of course, when we hit the Orc Codex, I will cover that then. Right now, we don't have time for that. Doc's Tools, so I was right. It's not the same as a meta pack. But let's see here. The Pain Boy set of tools, which counts as having 2 hand-to-hand weapons. Also roll an extra dice in hand-to-hand combat. If the Pain Boy wins a round of combat, it inflicts 1 wound, and the opponent is assumed to have been injected with a syringe squig, knocks the victim out, and they are removed as a casualty even if they have any wounds remaining. Ooh. That's pretty gross. Yikes. So actually, it's not for healing, it's for killing. Cool. So that multiple wound model, that's like an insta-kill weapon for 8 points? That is dirty. Custom Force Field. Custom Force Field is an orky device which careens wildly, blah, 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 blah. Whenever an orc equipped with a custom Force Field, a custom Refractor Field, is hit, roll a d6 and deduct the result from the strength. Incoming shot, roll of 6. Hit is automatically stopped, but the orc suffers a strength 3 hit instead, and the field shorts out and gives him a nasty shock. If the field shorts out, this card is discarded immediately. Okay. So, it's basically a force field. Makes perfect sense, but it only protects that one orc. It's not like nowadays where it protects like everybody within 9 inches. Telescopic legs are an invention of a pure orky cunning. An orc with telescopic legs gains +2 to its move characteristic. That's cool. So he basically got stilts. Doesn't suffer any movement penalties for crossing obstacles. Again, stilts. The orc can also raise itself 2 inches in the shooting phase, allowing it to see. Yeah, so pretty much stilts. Neato. Alright, moving on, guys. Let's get through these. What do we got? Eldar cards now. Oh, and some orky cards. So, in fact, I'm going to cover the orky cards. So, Run to Herd Grab a Stick is a strength 8 hit with no saving throw or armor. Saves allowed. Wow. Victim is stunned even if they survive the shock, so weapon skill is reduced to 0. Oh, that is dirty. Mech Boy's Tools. Set allowing you, in hand-to-hand combat, just like the Doc's Tools. Enter next to a damaged vehicle and may attempt to repair. Weapon that have completely blown off, for example, or engines that have been exploded may not be repaired. That makes sense. Roll a d6 to see if the repair is successful. On a 4, 5, or 6, the location is returned to full working order. On any other roll, it remains damaged. So 4+, you get to fix a location on your vehicle. That's neat. Force Field Projecta. This has got to be the one that protects your dudes. Force Field may be turned on at the start of an orc turn. Represents by a 12-inch ruler or by 2 dice or counters placed 12 inches apart. It must be placed completely within 18 inches of the operator. Okay, so it doesn't have to necessarily be centered on the operator. That's interesting. Once in place, nothing can shoot or move through the force field under any circumstances. This includes teleporting models, psychic attacks, skimmers, and mole mortar attacks. Yeah. Note that the force field stops all orc attacks and movement as well. Vehicle that hit the force field must stop moving, but not suffer any damage. Roll a d6 for the force field at the start of each of the subsequent orc turns. On a 1 to 3, it burns out. On a 4 or 6, it keeps working and can either be left in place or turned off or replaced anywhere within 18 inches of the operator. Cool. So he basically puts an impenetrable wall up. That would protect a few units for sure, if you really need to. Plus, you could also stop a quickly advancing army. That is a really useful piece. And the Weird Boy Staff. I believe this is the last of the orc cards I have. All Weird Boys carry a copper staff. Particularly valued by Weird Boys. Eventually, all special Weird Boy Staff make strange copper alloys. Yeah, I don't care. A Weird Boy Staff is a force weapon, and Weird Boy can add his mastery level to the strength of wounds against demons automatically in hand-to-hand combat. A Weird Boy might also re-roll the dice for the Wah test if he fails the first roll. Cool. So it's a force weapon that allows you to not explode, because orc psychers are incredibly unpredictable compared to human psychers. So we're moving on to Eldar weapons. We've got an Executioner, which takes many forms. A heavy spear, a rune-crested sword, a black scythe, Whatever its form, it's one of the most deadly hand-to-hand weapons. The Executioner has a strength of 8 with a -6 save modifier. Wow! And inflicts D3 damage. The Executioner can be used to parry, but it requires both hands to use it. That's pretty dirty. Fire Pike. We're used to the Fire Dragon Exarchs carrying. Still says Eldar only, though. A Fire Pike is the form of a long-range melt-a-gun, which can blast holes through armor and flesh at ease. Right. Basic stats, strength 8, d6 damage, -4 save modifier. That's exactly what we're used to even nowadays for melt-a-guns. The Bright Lance, basically your Eldar las cannon. High-powered laser weapon that is stripped-down las cannon. The Bright Lance sacrifices some of the range and punch for a heavier laser weapon for a faster recharge rate and a lighter weight. It is possible to move and fire with a Bright Lance. Wow, so it's a las cannon you can move and shoot with. That is dirty. The Web of Skulls, ancient Eldar weapon consisting of 3 crystal skulls linked together by a length of a chain. The weapon is grasped by the chain links and cast into spinning bolas, returning automatically to the user. Cool, like a skull boomerang. That's kind of neat. Web of Skulls also is used in hand-to-hand combat like a flail. When thrown, the weapon has the profile shown below. Right, 24-inch range, strength 6, 1 damage, -2 to your save. That's cool. Can be thrown at any 3 targets within 12 inches of each other, striking each in turn. Ooh, that's even better. Jeez. So you can literally hit 3 guys with the same hit. That is nuts. And it's strength 6, which is actually pretty dirty. Las Blaster. That's basically your Eldar triple-barreled las gun, right? Triple-barrel laser weapon with a power blade attached to it. Cool. 3 shots per shooting phase in the same way Eldar scatter lasers. All 3 targets must be within 6 inches of each other. Roll to hit is normal, resolving damage using weapon profile, blah blah blah. Power blade in the stock may be used in hand-to-hand combat using the profile given below. So, wow. It's basically a las gun that you can shoot 3 strength 6 shots against 3 different opponents, which is pretty nasty. And then in close combat, it's strength 5 with a -3 save modifier. Jeez, basically an upgraded power weapon. Moving on to more Eldar goodness. Nightwing, the Cyber Raven. Oh, that's Space Wolves. Okay, I'm going to finish the Eldar stuff first, and then we'll move on to Space Wolves. So, Seer Runes, complex Wraithbone shape, blah, 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 blah. When an enemy user psychic power may immediately counter its effects by using the Seer Runes. The power is nullified automatically. Seer Runes never... Yeah, okay, so basically that's an even better psychic hood because it just nullifies the enemy power immediately. However, it's 1 use only, so there you go. Witchblades are a unique weapon. 1 or 2 unused force cards may be stored within the Witchblade instead of being placed on the warp card discard pile. Stored force cards... See the weapon uses subsequent psychic phase, hand-to-hand combat. Witchblade increases the wielder's strength characteristic by a number equal to his mastery level. So very much like the force staff we saw for the Imperium. Automatically with no saving throws. Yep, wounds demons automatically with no saving throw. The wielder may also expend stored force cards to gain additional bonuses in hand-to-hand combat. Each force card expended is an extra +2 strength and -2 armor save. Wow. So you can dump a bunch of force cards into that and just make it a freaking vehicle killer. You can bring down a Land Raider with like 1 hit. That is nuts. Singing Spears, or Silver Spear, chased with mysterious metals. Blah, 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 blah. At the end of the psychic phase, 1 or 2 unused force cards may be stored in the spear. Sword force will retrieve the weapon. The spear can also be thrown 12 inches in the shooting phase and returns to the psyker after the throw. Hand-to-hand combat when throwing the spear increases the wielder's strength by a number equal to his mastery level. And yeah, so it's basically a force weapon that you can throw, which is absolutely gross. And again, every force card you add to it is +2 strength and an extra -2 to his AP. Eldar Spirit Stones. For Psychers, discard art 1 use only. Spirit Stone is a psychic crystal containing yet long dead Eldar. Often, spirit stones Eldar Seers are carried for living compatriots to lend them extra psychic strength. A spirit stone can be tapped for additional psychic energy once per battle, enabling the Warlock or Farseer to draw 1 extra warp card per mastery level of the warp deck immediately. Wow! So a Farseer at mastery level 4 could just draw, like, use this and draw 4 extra warp cards to throw his powers out there. That is crazy. That makes him so good. Anyway, let's move on to Space Wolves. So the Cyber Raven, it says Rune Priests only, but we know there is a special character with that Cyber Raven, and it basically has the stat line here. Nightwing has no movement or leadership values, but always moves with Njal at all times. So there you go. Actually, it's for Njal. Yep, fighting hand in combat alongside. Yes, it's basically just another little pet bird that he carries with him with that stat line. Toughness 6 though. That is nuts. Wow. Strength 3, toughness 6, 1 wound. Crazy. The Hood of Nyril. So for Rune Priests only, additional psychic power, mastery level is 1, therefore receives 2 psychic powers. If it's 2, receives 3. Yep. Basically just giving you an extra psychic power. That's kind of neat. That's way better than the normal hood. The Axe of Morkai. Taken by Space Wolves Commander Logan Grimnar. Taken from defeated champion of Khorne and imbued with the brutal power of the bloodthirsty god. The axe has reforged by many iron priests and engraved with 2 heads of Morkai, Guardian Wolf, and the Gates of Death. The axe has a strength 6. Enemy suffers wounds from -3 save modifier. Each critical hit in the hand-to-hand combat, i.e. attacks with the roll of a 6, add not +1 to the combat score, but plus D3. Crazy. The Wolf Helm of Russ traditionally has ancient helm, was fashioned by the Emperor's artificer for Leman Russ, the Primarch. So long as a Space Wolf warrior wearing the Helm of Russ is on the battlefield, any Space Wolf characters or units that can see the wearer will automatically pass break tests. Cool. So basically, he's wearing the Primarch's helmet, so they automatically, like it just makes your army, anyone can then see him. So it's not a range, just anyone can see him. Is immune to psychology, basically. Cool. And Frostfang is a mighty weapon crafted for centuries ago from Iron Priests, Fergus Forgrim, famed master craftsman of the Space Wolves. Its chainsaw blade is fashioned from a rare metal whose secret died with the ancient Iron Priest. It has a superior profile as shown below. Strength 5, D3 damage, -2 save modifier, armor penetration 2d6 plus D3 plus 5, right? Parry. But it's basically just a badass power sword. Moving on. Oops. Got some cards falling out here. Sorry about that, guys. These card pages are not the best. The Rod of Torment. Now we're getting into chaos. Awesome. Actually, again, I'll finish the Space Wolf stuff. My bad. The Pelt of the Wolfen. This ancient pelt is a massive wolf of Fenris, blah, 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 blah. At ranges of 10 inches, the pelt reduces the enemy's chance of scoring a hit by -1. At 10 to 20 inches, -2. At 20 to 30, -3, and so on. Any extra 10 inches reducing the chance of hitting by a further negative. Yeah, of course. These penalties apply to shooting, not to hand-to-hand fighting, and are additional, no other modifiers, etc. Cool. Wow, that's pretty cool. So it makes them really hard to hit with shooting. Interesting. The Rune Staff, Stormcaller. So this is, again, for Njal Stormcaller only, which is interesting because the other bird that was supposed to be for Njal didn't say Njal only, it said Rune Priests only. So I suppose you could give that bird to other Rune Priests. But this guy here is only given to Njal. Start of the game, he deals 3 cards from the Warp deck. Any force cards are retired within the Rune Staff. Other cards are returned to the deck. Further force cards may be placed in the staff as they are dealt, up to a maximum of 3. During any psychic phase, the force cards may be used to power the wielder's psychic abilities. Stormcaller adds +1 to the wielder's attacks and initiative, and adds a strength bonus equal to the wielder. Oh, cool, so it can be used to store away some badass force cards to make your psychic powers even better. So there we go. So now we're getting into the Chaos Wargear cards, which is awesome. So we've got Fabius Bile's Rod of Torment. Any opponent suffering 1 or more wounds from the Rod of Torment is immediately disabled from the pain and removed as a casualty if they have any remaining wounds. In addition, a model must pass a leadership test on 2d6 to let out a tortured scream so horrible that any friendly models within 8 inches must make a break test. That's crazy. That is so funny. Fabius Bile also comes equipped with a Cyclos Needler. Against other serums only affect living creatures. Against other targets, Needler is useless. Cyclos A automatically inflicts D3 wounds per hit. Cyclos B causes a psychotic vision, rolling D6 plus 2 on the hallucinogen effect table. Interesting. Cyclos C effects automatically catch fire and is ignited by a flamer. The flames cannot be smothered and must go on their own. The model dies, it explodes with the same effect as a plasma grenade. That is so random and crazy. I love it. Terminator armor. There you go. Same as normal Terminator. The armor affords, oh there you go, it says Abaddon only, so I guess Chaos Terminator armor is a little bit stronger than earthly materials once made of. The armor affords Abaddon a 2+ saving throw on 2d6 and will nullify any psychic power used against him. So like I was saying, Terminators get a 2+ on 2d6. This one also nullifies any psychic powers used against them, which include their air on a d6 roll of 4 or more. Okay. Still, that's dirty. That's dirty. He can nullify psychic powers on a 4-up. That is nuts. Only used against him, but that's cool. Black Staff of Ahriman. Black Staff is a potent focus of psychic energy. Whenever he uses a psychic power, the Black Staff reduces the number of force cards needed by 1 to a minimum of 1. So force power 2 requires 1, force power 3 requires 2, blah blah blah. Hand-to-hand combat, the powerful energies of the Black Staff add +4 to Airman's strength. Wow. So basically, it's a lot easier for him to cast psychic powers than it is for other Chaos sorcerers. Infernal Bolts, sorcerers of Tzeentch only. Bolts can be used whenever a model fires in the shooting phase. If the bolt explodes with the same effects as the psychic power of Tzeentch's Firestorm. The strength value of Firestorm is equal to the mastery level of the sorcerer using the bolt instead of the normal strength 5. Targets with saving throws against psychic attacks may make them as normal for Infernal Bolts. Otherwise, armor and energy fields have no effect. Okay, so it's not as effective against Grey Knights, but it definitely hurts other things, which is cool. So we got the Chirurgeon, which is Fabius Bile's cool backpack there, right? Complex part mechanical, part technological machine. Magical part technological machine. Punts Demon Ichor around Bile's body, giving him special powers and vulnerabilities as detailed in the Chaos Codex. In addition, the Chirurgeon contains a Frenzon dispenser implanted directly into Bile's heart. Wow. And his articulated drill and saw arms mean Bile rolls an additional 2 attack dice in hand-to-hand combat. Note that the +2 attacks are added after any doubling of his attacks for Frenzy. Right. So if you doubled for Frenzy, you don't get 4. That would just be stupid, right? And finally, we have Demon Weapons. A Demon Weapon contains a bound essence of a demon. You know that. A model wielding a Demon Weapon in hand-to-hand combat gains +2 to its weapon skill and strength characteristic, and always wounds a Psyker and demons on the roll of a 2 or more, regardless of their toughness. Living models wounded by a Demon Weapon during the hand-to-hand combat phase must roll a leadership test on a 2d6 immediately. If they fail, their soul is wrenched from their body and consumed by the weapon, killing the model instantly, regardless of their wounds. So that's basically an instant kill weapon that wounds Psykers and other demons on a 2 or higher. That is insane. Alright, so as well as the Chaos, or as well as the Wargear cards, I also want to cover the Chaos Reward cards today, and that's pretty much all we're going to cover today. I'm going to do all of the psychic powers and all of that stuff in next week's video, but anyway, let's get back to Wargear cards. You got the Talons of Horus, which obviously is Abaddon only. More or less a lightning claw, but the claw... Causes terror to Imperial forces, which is interesting. Except Blood Angels. I guess they're not scared of it because of Sanguinius and all that stuff. Which are affected by hatred instead, so they're even more angry, because of course that is the claw that killed their Primarch. That makes perfect sense. It is a claw that mounts a custom bolter in the back of it. It's also can make either a shooting attack or fight in close combat, but not both. Not both. That's interesting to note. So yeah, it's basically a lightning claw, strength 8, d3 damage, -5 to your save. As we discussed in the Wargear book, a lightning claw is basically better than a power fist, which is crazy, because in later editions it was just an upgraded power weapon, right? It allowed you to rerolls. Yeah, so there you go. It's a lightning claw, but it also has a built-in bolter, which is strength 5 instead of strength 4, which is crazy, with a -2 save modifier and 1 sustained fire dice. Wow, that's cool. We've got Abaddon's Demon Sword, which is really neat. Drachnien, I believe it was pronounced. Making a mockery of physical armor. Any hits inflicted by the sword will wound automatically. Holy crap. You get no saving throw for armor, although unmodified saves can still be taken. Of course, a force field is going to stop it still, but your armor does not. Vehicles struck by the sword have their armor penetrated automatically. Psychers and demons who suffer hits from the sword take d3 wounds instead of 1. Wow. So that is like a really upgraded power sword. Crazy. The Tyrant's Claw, Huron Blackheart. There was Red Corsairs in 2nd edition. In fact, it was the only way you could take, if I remember correctly, the only way you could take post-heresy weaponry, so like Razorbacks and things like that, Chaos didn't have access to, unless you were playing Red Corsairs, in which case I think they paid an extra 25% points in order to take them, which is neat, but they were allowed to, which is kind of cool. Anyway, let's get on to Huron Blackheart's Claw, which is basically if I remember correctly, a power fist that incorporates a heavy flamer. So what does it say here? Claw, the monstrous bear-like bionic arm, incorporates a twin-linked heavy flamer. Sorry, a built-in heavy flamer. I don't know why I read that as twin-linked. With a close combat number of hooks and blades, which allows Huron to parry. Cool. Can be used in the shooting phase, but not in hand-to-hand combat phase in the same turn. So just like Abaddon's Claw. So yep, strength 8, -5. It's a power fist, basically, with a heavy flamer built into it. Which is insane. Absolutely insane. Gorechild, Karn's awesome axe, is a deadly weapon capable of splitting an armored space marine from head to crotch with one blow. So Karn is so familiar with Gorechild that in hand-to-hand combat he may re-roll any fumbles on his attack dice. It's strength 7 with a -4 save modifier. Yikes. Alright, so we're also going to cover today the Chaos Rewards, which are basically Wargear cards, more or less, just Chaos specific. So I'm actually going to have to turn it this way because the cards are written in the opposite way, so you guys can actually see what I'm looking at here. So the first reward is the Destinies of Tzeentch. If an army includes any model with this Chaos Reward, then the force cards are always dealt to that side first, even if the psychic phase is your opponent's turn. In addition, that side always gets to use the first psychic power if both sides have a sorcerer with the reward. The two cancel. If both sides have this reward, then the two cancel each other out and the normal rules apply. Cool. So basically just giving you an advantage in the psychic phase. That's cool. Discs of Tzeentch are available to sorcerers of Tzeentch only. Model rides a Disc of Tzeentch which has been gifted to him by the Chaos Gods. The character's special rules for disc can be found in the Demonic Creatures section of Codex Chaos. Okay, so there you go. Again, these were actually cut out of the Chaos Codex, so these ones came in the Codex, but we're going to cover them nonetheless. Breathe Fire. Again, sorcerers of Tzeentch only. Model may breathe fire. This allows the model to attack in the shooting phase as if it were armed with a flamer. It's treated exactly the same way as any other weapon attack, so if the model breathes fire, it may only make another shooting... Yeah, of course. It's basically taking place of your shooting weapon. It may not breathe fire if engaged in close combat. That makes total sense too. The Fortune of Tzeentch Again, for sorcerers of Tzeentch only. A model with this reward is allowed to use the Nullify each psychic phase, even if they didn't have a Nullify card. That's cool. This Nullify always works on a roll of a 4+, no matter what the psychic level of the models involved. Neat. So it makes it way easier for 40 points for a sorcerer to nullify stuff. Now getting into Nurgle, we've got Nurgle's Rot. After making normal attacks in hand-to-hand combat, roll a d6 for each mortal enemy model in base contact. On a roll of a 6, they contract Nurgle's Rot and suffer a single wound. No saving throw of any kind is allowed, so it cannot be stopped by energy fields. Wow. Dodged or stopped by Metasquigs and so on. Crazy. So even in unmodified saves don't get it. Wow. Note this only applies to mortal foes, not other demons, vehicles, avatars, or Wraithguard. Makes sense. They're not alive. How are they going to get attacked by a disease? Cool, so we've just got a couple more to cover here. Nurgle's Cloud of Flies for champions of Nurgle only. A cloud of flies surrounds the model. All enemy models in base contact suffer -1 modifier to their weapon skill, whether they are affected the model cloud of flies or with the cloud of flies or another. Oh, so even if you have a cloud of flies, you still get affected by the cloud of flies of the enemy. That's weird, but cool. Beast of Nurgle. A model is accompanied by a Beast of Nurgle that has been gifted to him by the Chaos Gods. So basically he's got a little Nurgle doggy. Characteristics of the special rules of the beasts can be found in the demonic creatures section of the Chaos. Yep, of course. The beast will attempt to remain in 6 inches of the master at all times. In effect, the two form a special unit and must obey unit coherency rules. So why does it even say that it has to remain within 6 inches? Oh, okay, because he can be attached to a champion, so your unit of Plague Marines could have a Beast of Nurgle accompanying them. Only has to be within 2 inches of the unit, right? Unit coherency. But has to stay within 6 inches of the character itself. I see. That makes perfect sense, I guess. Plague Sword drips with venomous slime. A wound from a Plague Sword will kill a mortal creature outright on the d6 roll of a 4 or more, regardless of how many wounds they have. On a roll of 1 to 3, the Plague Sword only causes 1 wound. Note that this only applies to mortal foes, not other demons, vehicles, avatars, or Wraithguard. Cool. So another instant kill weapon on a 4+. Just kills the dude. If you roll a 1 to 3, it just takes 1 wound like any other weapon. Moving on to Slaanesh, we've got the Steed of Slaanesh. A model rides a Steed of Slaanesh, which has been gifted to him by the Chaos Gods. The characteristics and special rules for the steeds can be found in the Chaos Codex. Okay, moving on. The Allure of Slaanesh. In hand-to-hand combat, enemy models must test against their leadership on 3d6 to be able to strike this model. Wow. Otherwise they're like, I love you, I won't hurt you. If they fail the test, they fight. If they fail the test, then they fight normally, but if they win the combat, they will not strike the model, and so any hits are wasted if they fail? If they fail the test, they fight normally? That is weird. But if they win the combat, then they will... Once an enemy model has passed the test, it needs not test again. That's really strangely worded. Why would it work if they failed? It would not work if they passed. I don't know. I'm confused on that one. Maybe you guys can clarify that one in the comments for me, because I have no idea what the hell that's saying to me. Moving on, the Gaze of Slaanesh. Chaos Champions have been granted the ability to direct a lurid eldritch gaze towards nearby enemies, distracting them and weakening their resolve. Enemy models attempting to fight the champion in hand-to-hand combat have their attacks characteristics reduced by -1. Cool. That's handy. Now on to Khorne. We've got the Collar of Khorne, something we're also familiar with. In later editions it allowed you to nullify psychic powers on a 5+, I believe. This one, Blood of Khorne's Throne, power of the Collars suck the energy of the warp from around it, fortifying the wearer and also protecting it from psychic attacks. As a result, force weapons lose their strength bonus, cannot wound the wearer automatically if he is a demon. And psychic attack, as if he was a demon, okay. And psychic attacks that target the wearer or include it in the area of effect are nullified and will just nullified straight up. No roll, no nothing. Wow. So worth it for 30 points. The Praise of Khorne. Favorite of Khorne, receive the Blood God's unholy blessing. Model may retake any failed armor save. Note that this reward will not work on other types of saves other than armor saves. Right, so you can't use it on unmodified saves. That makes perfect sense. And, oh, we still got a Slaanesh one here. The Scream of Slaanesh. With the ability to emit a dreadful soul-numbing scream. When the model charges, it causes fear. Okay, I guess that's kind of cool. And then I've got some more psychic powers here for you guys, but I will not be covering that today. I'm just going to cover the Wargear and stuff like that. We'll be covering that next week, as I'll explain to you later. So, the last two we're going to cover today are the Axe of Khorne and the Juggernaut of Khorne. So the Axe of Khorne, model carries a mighty axe, suffused with chaotic power and laden with death. A hit from the Axe of Khorne causes not 1 wound on the victim, but D3 wounds. Yikes. In addition, the wearer adds +1 to their strength. Cool. And a Juggernaut of Khorne, very similar to the other mounts we've seen. Model rides a Juggernaut of Khorne, has been given to him by the Chaos Gods. The characteristics and special rules for this are included in the Demonic Creatures section. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the Chaos Codex, obviously later in this series. I'm going to go through all of the 2nd edition stuff with you guys. I really wanted to cover all of the cards for you guys today, but of course, it was just way too much to cover, and so join me again next week where we will cover the rest. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed that. So, as I've explained in past videos, I know this has been a long time coming because we went through all of the other rule books and stuff like that in past videos, and I really wanted to show you guys all of the cards today, but upon going through them I realized there was so much material to cover that I didn't want this to be like a 3-hour video for you guys. So, we've covered the mission cards, which added to our Battle for Armageddon missions that we saw in the past video. Also, we've covered the vehicle upgrade cards, which are excellent, as well as the strategy cards, which just added nice twists to our missions and stuff like that. As well, I've covered all of the Wargear cards for pretty much all the races, I think, at least the ones that I have in my collection. I'm pretty sure I have everything, but I'm not entirely sure. If I'm missing anything, please comment below and let me know, and maybe I can acquire those and show you guys those in the future. But I really wanted to show you guys the psychic phase and how all that works. But I also have the Force deck and I have all the psychic powers in the binder I just showed you guys, but I have all the Force deck as well as all the templates and stuff like that for 2nd edition in another box. So next week we'll be covering the psychic powers, as well as any of the other cards we have for this edition. I will also show you guys the Warp deck and sort of give you a brief explanation of how the psychic phase worked in 2nd edition. So we're going to be saving that for next week's video because, like I say, I don't want this video to go on forever. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video at least. If you really like these videos, please hit the subscribe button. We love it when we get new subscribers. As well, hit the bell notification so that we know, so that you know when our videos come out. Also, hit the like button, guys. Comment. We love getting likes and comments. We love hearing from you guys. If there's anything you want to hear from me as far as classic stuff that you want to see, please comment below. Email me at encounterwargaming@gmail.com. On top of that, please, if you guys like our videos, if you like our battle reports, you like our terrain tutorials, you like all the other stuff we do, as well as these classic Hammer videos, please check out the description below. We have a Patreon campaign, and basically it just allows us to keep the lights on and keep giving you guys new content, improving our content, stuff like that. But it's not just all for us. Of course, there is a lot of rewards that you guys get for becoming patrons, and it can cost you as little as $1 a month. I mean, it's like pocket change, and it goes a long way to help us here. Also, we always want to make sure you guys know that by becoming a patron, it will get you 10% off thewarpainter.com, a great Canadian supplier of paints and brushes and other hobby supplies. So check out that website. That's thewarpainter.com. And being a patron of ours gets you 10% off his stuff, which is awesome. So I hope you guys liked that. Hit like, hit subscribe, check out our Patreon, and we will see you at our next encounter.
Like a monkey in a rocket on its way back home. Okay.